to Top 3 with Strada Law, where we explore the intersection of the law with your life and business journey. At Strada Law, we're committed to changing how you view lawyers and the legal profession. So in this podcast, we have real conversations with real people about real things, not just legalese. We'll talk with those who have faced the challenges you're facing so you can learn from their experience. And we'll share 3 easy to remember takeaways on each episode. Yeah, we'll talk about the law, but we'll mostly talk about life and business and how the law overlaps with almost everything that you do. I'm Jeneva Vazquez, the owner and principal attorney of Strada Law, a law firm focused on serving estate planning and small business planning clients, and I'm your host. As a quick disclaimer, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer unless we've entered into a written agreement to work together. I'm licensed in North Carolina, New Mexico, South Carolina, Florida, and New Jersey. I can serve clients in those states. Nothing said here today is intended to be legal advice, and this information is for educational purposes only. With me today, we have Melissa Taylor of RogerandMelissa.com. Melissa's business and entrepreneurial journey actually began when she was a competitor, coach, and choreographer in professional dance. Her entrepreneurial journey has had several different chapters before she formed RogerandMelissa.com, where she is a coach to coaches and entrepreneurs. One of the things Melissa is passionate about is building a referral-based business through intentional networking. She runs the Network Build Grow family of networking events and teaches others how to network effectively to build real relationships. Welcome, Melissa.
Well, good morning.
Thanks so much for being with me today.
Absolutely.
So I want to start out and talk a little bit about your business background, because you are somebody I would categorize as a serial entrepreneur. You've had a lot of different chapters of being a business owner, and it's for you, like me, you have a long family history of entrepreneurship, right?
Yes, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. Both my parents were entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about how you got started.
Sure. So like you said, the first business that I opened was a international dancing. So it was a ballroom, Latin, country, swing type dancing. I was a competitor, got asked a lot to teach. So I opened up my own dance studio, hired some other people to teach there, things like that. I was actually a professor of ballroom dance at a university in my hometown. And I traveled all over the place doing coaching, choreography, all that kind of stuff for, oh my gosh, 20 years, something like that. So it's a very long journey. When my husband and I, he actually was in the business with me. Not when I started, but I actually met him through dancing. And so we then moved across the country. So we ended up actually selling our dance events that we owned, one in Albuquerque, one in Colorado, the dance studio, and I had kids. So then of course that kind of ended that dance, chapter of my life a little bit, decided to reprioritize, not travel so much. So then I was a mom. And I would say that is an entrepreneurial journey all on its own. And then from there, actually, I was in the real estate investments. So we had about 11 rentals for a while. That's a full-time job. And then I moved into wellness. I'd always been interested in it. So I actually became certified in integrative wellness and started a company called One Decision Wellness, which is still in existence today, although I now have a partner who runs that particular business. I don't really have much to do with it anymore. I will go in and do seminars and things like that every once in a while. But as I did that, a lot of people started asking me, how do you build a successful business? We've now built 3. How do you build a successful business? What does that look like? Especially in the health and wellness, there's so many like life coaches and health coaches that needed a lot of guidance, I guess you could say. So I founded RogerandMelissa.com, really started out with mostly helping coaches, like a coach's coach, so to speak. But now we help all different kinds of entrepreneurs. And through our networking, Network Build Grow, we help even insurance, real estate, financial professionals, all kinds of people help with their intentional networking, as you so wonderfully put it a moment ago. So that's kind of been the journey, kind of a winding road, but here we are.
Yeah. So in your current business, do you work with people one-on-one as far as coaching, or what is the primary means that you do that?
Yeah, so primarily we work through a mentorship program, which is kind of a group kind of a situation. We will mentor one-on-one, but as a business model, that's very limiting because you only have so many hours in the day, so you can't scale that. So that's what we actually teach a lot of our coaches. So we have group programs, group mentoring programs, which takes them through a process, gets them where they need to be. There's some one-on-one interaction within that, but mostly it's group type of situations. So that's how we do it.
Talk a little bit about your speakers league, because that is such an interesting thing to me. And I think it's a really, it's a cool concept.
Oh, okay, great. So a lot of people need to be speakers. They need to be speakers to show their expertise in their field. So we even have people that have gone through our speaker league program that are financial planners or insurance agents or attorneys that want to go out and actually do lead generation through giving speeches, not to sell their products or their services, but to educate people on the concept of the industry and what the importances are, help problem solve. And in the process of doing that, they then get leads that can turn into clients. So the Speakers League isn't just for people who want to be motivational speakers or speakers that speak on like good business practices, business coaches or life coaches. It's really anybody that wants to use it as a lead generation. So we have an 8-week course that takes them through how to really get your message across, how to sell from the stage without being salesy, to where everybody feels like they just came for a big hour-long sales pitch, how to be very useful, how to make sure that they leave with things that they can actually do and implement in their business or their life. So that's what we do. We have a signature code, CODE, that we take them through, plus a lot of other pieces and parts. We also show them how to actually get themselves booked onto different platforms so they can, now they have this speech, this keynote speech or whatever, or workshop. Now, how do you get out there and actually do it? So we take them through that whole gamut. And then a lot of our Speaker League graduates join our alumni association to help further along, help their speaking career further along.
And you and I both, I think, agree with this, and maybe I learned some of this from you, but I think in part, adding real value to people, really going into a speaking engagement or an opportunity to really just pass along the knowledge that you have with no intention of actually getting something back, right? Giving without trying to receive immediately. It's something that I think a lot of business owners fail to do. They fail to realize that, they don't need to go into the pitch from day one.
Right, exactly. We live in a highly digitized, instant gratification world. I mean, we're just like, it's so funny. When we were kids, well, not you, because you're a lot younger than me, but when I was a kid, if somebody took a picture of you, like at a family reunion or, a vacation, you had to wait for that picture to be like developed. And then you get it back in the mail or whatever, and you actually get to see the pictures. That's the first time I really realized when my kids were like, oh, let me see the picture. Or like right after we took it. It's like instant gratification, everything we do. And so when people start a business, especially the younger generation, they want instant results. And they see these YouTubers or these influencers have overnight success. And I do this because they don't know how many hours that person put in before they became an overnight success. But it appears that they were this overnight speaker success or whatever. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs think, oh, this is going to be easy and I'm going to get this right away. And when that doesn't happen, they get discouraged. And so one of the things that we talk about a lot is you have to give a lot of yourself, your time, your knowledge, value, your gratitude, your appreciation. All of that will come back to you tenfold if you just practice patience.
Patience. And, I think there's something to that old adage, the know, like, and trust, right? Yes. If somebody knows you, they like you, and they trust you, if they've seen that you know what you're talking about on multiple occasions, then when an issue comes up, they're more likely to think of you.
Absolutely. It's funny. I was just talking to a new client today, but I met her 2 years ago. So she came to a workshop 2 years ago, and I just kind of had some touches with her every once in a while over the past 2 years. She hired us as her coaches today. So sometimes that's what it takes. It just takes continuing to add value.
I agree. I think that that's a good point, and something that a lot of newer entrepreneurs or people who are maybe even, just doing something as a hobby that are eventually going to turn it into a side hustle, that are eventually going to turn it into a full-time business. It's critical to remember you still have to put the work in to build those relationships the whole time.
the whole time.
Don't just put the sign up and people come out.
Right. And it can be anything. Like it can be anything. Like I love the story about Stacy's pita chips. Have you ever heard that story?
I'm not familiar with it.
So you know Stacy's pita chips, right? In the bag. Okay. So we eat them all the time here. But it started because she had a pita cart, lunch cart in New York City. And so she would serve these pitas and she would get a line because they were so great. Well, one day she thought, oh my gosh, all these people are standing in this huge line. I feel bad. So every night she would bake the old pitas and she'd have one of her people like go down the line and give them pita chips while they were waiting. Well, look what it turned into. So it's that patience thing. It's that she gave those people value while they were waiting for what she had to offer. And then it just blew up. I mean,
right. And then they would call her an overnight success.
Right. But people call her an overnight success. But how many hours did she spend in the heat and in the rain and in the snow on the New York City streets making pitas for people before this like overnight success?
Right.
And so I don't care what business you're in. It doesn't matter. It could be the food business. It can be insurance. It can be legal. It can be real estate. It doesn't matter. It's all about getting to know people, showing them that you're in it for them first, obviously you and your bottom line as well, but that's what it takes.
Right.
That's what it takes.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, and that's part of the reason that you built Network Build Grow, right? Is to give people a platform to do this better.
Right. Right.
So what is Network Build Grow, and tell me a little bit about how that started.
Sure. So I was going to networking events in the Charlotte area because that's how you know, like, and trust people. That's how you get to know people. And I found that 99% of them, and that's a crazy, assumption, but most of them were not very well run. The people were there just handing out business cards like Halloween candy, not following up. There was no depth. I mean, there was just no relationship building aspect to it. And most of them didn't have like a learning aspect to it. So I decided, well, this is ridiculous. And so I started my own. And I thought, okay, what do I want it to be about? Well, I want us to network with each other. And by network, I mean build relationships, get to know each other, understand the value that each other can provide. We want to help people build their circle of influence, build their knowledge base, their wisdom to be able to support the business that they're building. And then of course, grow being so that they can grow, so that they can really flourish and so Network Build Grow is how that came about. So we started it out just making sure we always had quality speakers, which because I have Speaker League, I've got a lot of speakers that I can pull from. Quality speakers that speak on things like customer relations, networking, closing the sale, sales techniques, automations, email automations, campaigns, marketing, all these different things that entrepreneurs and small business owners or like attorneys and financial planners and real estate people, which really are in business for themselves, even if they work for a firm, a place that they could have all of that in one. And so that's how we created Network Build Grow. And it grew like overnight, right? It grew very rapidly. It's very strong now. We have about 3,000 people that come through the doors. We have about 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, about 15 to 16 events every single month that people can come to. And so it's a community where you can be held accountable, but you can also learn. You can also network. We spend a good bit of our time connecting people together. And so that's how it originated. That's how it started. And it's become a huge part of my personal business.
And so
it's the number one way I market. And I don't do other marketing. That's it. I just do Network Build Grow.
Actually, Network Build Grow was the first networking event I went to when I moved to Charlotte from Albuquerque. And one of the things that I love that you do, people you hear so often, I hate networking, right? And part of it is because what people think of networking as being is, walking around a room with maybe a drink on your little cocktail napkin and then like fumbling to pull out your business card and give it to, the person.
Feeling awkward.
Yeah. And then you start talking to one person and then it's like, how do you get out of this conversation? How do I meet more people? There's all these like psychological things that are going on and it's uncomfortable, by and large, you know, especially when you don't know anybody at the event. And a lot of people make the mistake of not going to the event in the first place because they don't know anyone that's going to be there.
Right.
And so one thing that you do that's different is you try to, I call it in some ways, like this is, you know, my little vernacular for it, but it's forced networking, because what you do is organize the event to where people don't have to do any of that awkward stuff.
Right. We put them in small groups. We give them a question to answer. They all answer the question. We change them to a different group. It's very strategic.
Right. And it's more about getting to know each other versus giving a sales pitch. Right. And so that's something that, I mean, you're right. 99% of networking events do not do that. They're more of the napkin on the, you know, with the drink approach. And they're not effective. It's not an effective way to meet people or really build relationships. And one of the things that I love that you always push people to do is to ask, how can I help you? Right? Instead of going into the conversation of how can that person help me?
Right. Yeah, that's really key to everything that we do at Network Build Grow is, you know, I tell people, if you go to a Network Build Grow event and you have 5 action items that you can help 5 different people when you leave, and you actually do them, you're going to increase your circle, you're going to increase your like, know, and trust factors, and it's going to make a huge difference. You know, you're right. So the social kind of business networking with the, you know, the drink on the napkin and all that kind of stuff, I call that business dating. And it's just very awkward for everybody, right? And then the other type is the 30-second commercials. And so where you know, they go around the room and like everybody stands up and gives their little 30-second commercial. I mean, how effective is that really? Like, you know, right. So that's why we just wanted to move away from both of those models and come up with our own.
So what are some of you mentioned all the different types of events that you do each month. I have the privilege to actually be involved with being a facilitator of one of those events, but
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the different types of events that people can find if they want to get involved in some of the things that you're doing.
Sure, because a lot of them is virtual. And so even if they're not here, I mean, we have people from South Africa and Australia joining in on some of our things. So we have 2 signature events per month. And those signature events are kind of everybody comes, we have a guest speaker. Right now it's all virtual, so we use the breakout rooms to do the little smaller groups. We also at the end do what we call one-on-one speed networking, like speed dating, where you get to meet one person at a time and we go around, which is kind of fun. But we always have a valuable speaker at those. Speaks for 20 to 30 minutes, answers questions, and it's always something relative to your business or your life outside of business that will make a difference in your business, you know, so it's always very valuable. So we have 2 of those per month. And then we have our huddles. And the way a huddle got born, I guess, is because I would go to an event and I'd have like 20 people that wanted to meet for one-on-one coffee. Well, I don't have 20 hours in a week to give to one-on-one coffees, much less I don't drink coffee and I don't want to go spend money at coffee shops just because I need to meet this person. So I came up with a way that I could meet with 4 or 5 people at a time, which is a benefit to all of us. I get to have those little kind of one-on-one closer business building, you know, relationship building conversations, but they also did with each other. And so we have the huddle. So now we have that as an intentional group. So we have 4 of those per month where we bring together a smaller group and we mastermind around people's challenges, their new ideas. So it's not just pitching your business, it's how can we help you? What challenge are you facing? Because if you have a marketing challenge, you know, Joe over here might have had the same challenge and he might give you some good ideas. So we use it as kind of a mastermind type of a group. So we have 4 of those a month. Then we have our strategic collaboratives, which yes, you are the host for one of those. You are the host for the legal, financial, and insurance industry. We have 7 different kind of broad category industries with a host for each one. And the reason why you want to, it's kind of like a huddle, but industry specific. And the reason why you want to get with just people in your industry is a couple of different reasons. One, those industries have challenges of their own. So, you know, somebody in the legal industry might have a challenge that if they're talking to somebody who's a personal trainer, well, probably not going to understand your challenge or be able to help much. So this is a place where you can really mastermind around not only your own challenges, but industry challenges. You know, like real estate, you know, the industry challenges of real estate industry during COVID is different. They need to talk to each other. Plus, a lot of those industries, you work with the same types of clients. So your referral connections are going to be bigger. Attorneys want to know financial planners, want to know CPAs. So if you're all in the same group, you have that benefit as well. So that's why we have those industry groups. So again, 7 different industry groups for that. And then when COVID is over, we will go back to doing our once a quarter luncheons. Those are here in Charlotte, where we bring in a bigger name speaker and we invite all the other different Charlotte networking groups and associations to come to the luncheon. So it's a time when Network Build Grow actually reaches out into the community and says, you're a networking group, come network with us. Let's pool our resources once every quarter and get to know each other. So that's what that is. So if you're really involved with Network Build Grow, it could be your home. Like you can get a lot of really great connections. And then also we bring in other people constantly. So that's our 4 different platforms.
The idea of the Huddle, which is an interesting one, is one that existed and you taught it before COVID and has kind of morphed into this now standalone event. But I remember, and this is something that I think, for our listeners, anyone can use in any city, whether they're involved in this organization or not. It's a really good idea of saying, I got these 5 business cards at an event. Let me email them all and say, hey, we all were at this same event. I connected with all of you. Let's all get together and have a time-saving way to, reconnect and have a more personalized conversation.
Absolutely.
And it's such a smart idea. You're right. It's giving value to the other people who maybe didn't get to meet the others that you met. And it's, time saving. You are still doing this individualized, follow-up, if you will, but in a more efficient way. And I love how you've now transitioned that into being a standalone event, as a result of COVID.
Right. Yeah. And I've been doing it for a long time. I did it even pre-Network Build Grow. I would get people together. And one thing that I would do if somebody wants to do this on their own is what I would do is say you and I and Michael and John were at an event. I'd call you and Michael and John and I'd say, hey, we were all at the same event. Let's all get together on Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock, whatever. And then I would say, oh, and by the way, I know this other person that wasn't even at the event that I'm also going to bring. Well, shoot, now they're going to meet like somebody totally different that they didn't have a chance to meet. So they're going to want to meet him, especially if I say, I think you'd really enjoy getting to know this person. He could really help your business, blah, blah, blah. And then I call this other person and I say, hey, I met these 4 people at this networking event. I think you would really like to meet them. I want to have you come to our coffee. That person's going to change their schedule to make sure that they come meet these people that you said are going to be good. So it's a way for you to set yourself up as in the community, your reputation in the community as a connector, somebody to know, somebody to be connected with, because you're bringing people in from different areas. So it really has set me up with a very large database of people I can pull from. I have people contact me a lot. Hey, do you know somebody in the interior design or in the this or in the that? And I can just go into my CRM and be like, yep, here you go. And it's great because you stay top of mind to people, on people's minds, which is what you want.
You're adding value for them too, without the expectation of receiving anything.
Exactly. But you will receive
in the end. So that kind of brings me to, one of the goals of this show is to give our listeners 3 actionable tips or takeaways. We've already talked actually about a lot of things, but for somebody who is still really intimidated by the word networking, who maybe hasn't done a lot of it, maybe lives in a smaller community. I mean, we're fortunate. We live in a large metropolitan area that has a lot of networking events, but not all cities do. So thinking through, for somebody who's taking the first steps to try to be a networker, if you will, what are your top 3 takeaways that you would tell that person as they're starting to dig into networking to really make those relationships be fruitful in the end for their business growth or maybe even their personal growth?
Yeah. So this is very, very common sense, but follow up. I mean, we talked about the old adage of know, like, and trust. Well, there's the other one, the fortune's in the follow up. And it is really true, because if you go to an event and you meet people and you don't follow up, then they just forget you. It's just gone. And I will tell you that most people don't follow up. It's funny. We have a course that we teach, a workshop that we teach called Networking is a Contact Sport. It uses a lot of sports analogies to talk about networking. We went to a place, I talked for, I think it was like 3 hours or something in this big workshop with like over 100 people. Do you know how many people, and I talked about follow-up, a lot, right? How many people actually followed up with me from that?
5, I would guess.
Not very many, right? So I was like, I just preached for 3 hours on follow-up. You know, I mean, I preach it all the time. I'll go to a networking group of 20 people and preach it and no follow-up. It's the funniest thing. You can take a horse to water, I guess, but you can't make them drink. But follow-up is really important. So the key to really good follow-up is to have a strategy, like have it decided. You know, I'm going to follow up within 24 hours just to say, hey, it was great to meet you. I'm going to follow up in 48 hours after that to say, you know, do you want to come to a huddle, or what event are you going to next? Or I'm going to this event. Do you want to join me? Or hey, here's an article I read that I thought you might enjoy, whatever. Within a week, I'm going to send them a card in the mail. I mean, you got to just have a system, because I think a lot of people, the intimidation goes away if they have a plan. Like, this is my plan. This is what I'm going to do. You can even create kind of little templates, email templates that you can kind of use to get started with, you know, not a generic one because people can see right through that, but something that you can just then personalize. So you've already got some well thought out words, but then you just personalize it with, you know, whatever you talked about with that person. So I think that's really a good thing, is to have some kind of a follow-up strategy. The second thing is, I think you're right. I think a lot of people don't go networking because they get there, they sign up to go, they drive there, or they, you know, get ready to sign on online or whatever, and then they just chicken out right at the last minute. So do the buddy system. Either find another entrepreneur that you do like that agrees to go with you, so you have like a wingman, right? Or contact the host. Contact the host. The host will respond. If the host doesn't respond, it's probably not a group you want to go to. Because if the host can't even be engaging, then why would you go, right? So contact the host, say, this is the first time I'm coming. Do you mind if I show up a couple of minutes early? Do you need any help? Can I show up early? Something that just at least you know one person. You feel like you kind of know one person. And you can be honest with them. I mean, I've had people contact me and say, I'm a little bit nervous about coming to this. It's my first networking event. I will say, show up early. I got you. I'll take care of you. And I make sure that somebody like you, or somebody that comes to a lot of the events, once I see you, I might say, hey, this is Julie. She's never been here before, Geneva. Can you kind of stick with her a little bit to show her the ropes? I mean, it's very easy to just contact the host and do something like that. So that's one way to get over some of your fears, is have a plan and just take somebody with you, or make sure you know where you're going. Those are two really big ones. And then the third one, I think we've already talked about. I'm a big, big fan of no one-on-ones. I mean, if you're going to have a one-on-one with somebody, you better be high tootin' sure that it's going to be beneficial, win-win for both of you, or it's just not worth your time. Really.
One thing that I've loved through COVID, honestly, is the ability to do quicker one-on-ones through Zoom. You know, you can, before we had to schedule an hour of commute time to get to the coffee shop. Then, you know, how long are you there? How do you get out of the meeting? Before you know it, you've killed half your day doing this one-on-one. Now it's like you can do a quick 30-minute Zoom call or 20-minute Zoom call to just retouch base. You can do that even with 2 or 3 people to do a little huddle.
Yeah.
And it gives you a way to just have another bit of, you know, FaceTime with that person, even though you're not physically in the same space. But that's been, I think, a real pro of COVID, and it's something that I hope we keep going after.
Oh, I think it will. Yeah, I think it will. I think a lot of people are much more comfortable with this now. Number one, I think it was like, oh no, let's just meet for coffee. We just want to be in the same room. Where now this has become very normal. So I think it will stay. It's definitely cheaper. I mean, my goodness. I mean, if you're having, you know, 3 one-on-ones per week, you're spending $60, $70, $80 a month on coffee or hot chocolate or tea or whatever. Not to mention your waistline, you know, with those scones from Starbucks and all that stuff.
So to recap, so your top 3 are to have a strategy, systematize, I think where there's systems in anything, it's easier to just do it because you don't have to think, right? You just go.
Yep.
2 is to be brave and follow through with actually showing up. Don't feel comfortable, get a buddy or contact the host.
Yep.
And then 3 is to be efficient with your networking time, right? Don't do something that is just a time suck that's, either do a huddle or, don't do something that's not going to yield a lot with your time value.
Right. One way or the other. So, and we're coming up on the holidays. I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but we're sitting right now at the beginning of October. We're coming up on the holidays, which there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot more demands on your time. And so you want to be very strategic about where you spend your time. Even if it is just 15, 20-minute Zoom calls, you still want to be very strategic about what you say yes and what you say no to. I'm also a firm believer, though, that any connection is a good connection, because you could connect with someone and you could be thinking the whole time, you could be thinking, this is never going to turn into anything for me, and I don't even know who I would refer to them, so I'm not sure it's going to turn into anything for them. But you don't know who they know, and you don't know who you're going to meet that might need them. So there's still a value in the connection. It just depends on how much time both of you need to invest in that to have that connection be maintained.
I agree with that. You hear that a lot with people who are in the same space. They don't want to meet other people that are in their same field or space. And I just think that's so wrong, because everybody has a niche. Everybody has a different thing that they do.
Yes.
And, if you are a coach for, you're a nutritional coach, and that you might meet somebody who has a totally different type of demographic that they work with, even though you are kind of doing the same thing. I see that in my space too. I don't want to help everybody because I can't be good at helping everybody.
Right.
You can only be good at if you really want to be good at something, you have to niche down.
And the other thing that it's really important to associate and connect with your competitors is because you want your competitors to see you as the expert in the field.
Yeah, a trusted authority.
I mean, right. So you're an expert, you're an authority in the industry. So if they have overflow, who are they going to call? Right? Or if they have somebody, to your point, that's not a good fit for them, who are they going to call? They're going to call the person that they see as an expert in their own industry. Some of my best referrals come from other people who coach coaches or who coach speakers. Best referrals. I hear all the time from real estate professionals, their best referrals come from other real estate agents. So why would you want to be in a group that only has one?
Yeah,
right.
In the legal field, that's a big one too.
Yeah, and there's a lot of groups out there that have one spot for each industry. And I'm like, that doesn't even make sense to me, because that, you want to have more.
Right.
Than that.
So for right now, I mean, with, you are a really, really quick adapter to, I would say, COVID networking. I mean, you right away transitioned all of your events to Zoom events and have been adapting and making them better and better as this has gone on. And it's become clear that we're going to be networking this way for a while.
Right.
What are some things that you see as pitfalls that people are doing with Zoom networking that you weren't seeing maybe in person, or, what's some advice that you have as far as Zoom networking?
Okay, Zoom networking. The biggest thing I see is people don't bring their A game. Like, they are showing up online. They would never show up that way in person, either with what they wear, what's in their background, how they're presenting this, the whole, well, yeah. I mean, you wouldn't do that in an in-person situation. So it's like you see their true self because they're at home or something. You want to be your true self all the time. I'm not saying you should be somebody different. What I'm saying is, if you wouldn't wear, a Nike t-shirt to a networking event, maybe you should just put on a suit coat and, you can have your shorts on down here because nobody can see your legs or whatever. So that's one thing. I mean, I've even seen women get on there with like their hair in a bun and like look like they just stepped out of the shower, and it's kind of funny. So, and I'm not a big, I sound very superficial or kind of shallow, but it's distracting. That's the thing. It's distracting. You know, even backgrounds are distracting. And what you want to do is you want to present yourself in the most professional manner that you can with the least amount of distraction in your Hollywood square box. You know, so we have little Hollywood square boxes. And if you have a whole bunch of stuff going on in the background and kids walking by and dogs jumping in your lap, it's okay to be human. It's okay to have that. But if it's a constant, it's distracting. Or walking around with your phone and everybody can see you walking, or, you know, eating, like, at least put it on mute. So it can't,
the big thing that is happening is Zooming while driving.
Yes. Yes.
Which
that's dangerous.
I'm like, if you didn't have the time to attend the event before, you just wouldn't have gone. But now people will Zoom and network, Zoom drive and network at the same time, which is a huge safety issue.
Huge safety issue. And that actually brings up the second point I was going to make is people tend to come to an hour and a half Zoom, and it was scheduled for an hour and a half. And about 45 minutes in, they say, oh, I got to run. I have another appointment. Well, then why did you schedule this? Why are you coming in just for your own gain, is what it feels like at that point, and then leaving again? Like, make sure that you still give it the respect it deserves. There's a lot that goes into scheduling and putting on and hosting a networking event. Believe me, I do a ton of them. It takes a lot from the host. So respect the host enough to, if you RSVP, show up. Like, I think that's just a forgotten art in our society is, what do you call it? RSVP, common courtesy, right? Like, if you RSVP, show up. If you can't show up, if something comes up, un-RSVP or send in a note to the host and say, I'm so sorry, I can't make it. And then be there. Like, this is the other thing I see. They're not even paying attention.
For our podcast listeners, Melissa is doing a lot of distracted movements.
Yeah, I'm like looking at, I'm, you know, typing on my keyboard and looking at my thing, and I think, okay, if that email was that important to get out, then you shouldn't be on the Zoom call. So I suggest, like, shut down all of your notifications. You know, don't have your email behind the Hollywood squares. You know, just be present, because people can tell if you're interested or if you're not interested.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that I have seen is, you know, people feel that they have a lot more capacity now because they don't have to drive. So they're maybe signing up for a lot more than they would have, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But the other thing is you have to allocate the time to following up just as you would have before. So if you do not have the time to actually, there's no point in going to a networking event if you're just going to say your name, talk for 30 minutes, and never see the person again. You know, it's not intentional.
No. Yeah, we call that hope marketing. I'm going to go to this networking event. I'm going to hope that somebody finds me so interesting that they're going to call me and want to buy my services. That is not good marketing, right?
Which doesn't happen.
No, which doesn't happen. So we actually teach in networking as a contact sport that the minute you put a networking event on your calendar, immediately schedule yourself a half an hour to an hour on your calendar to follow up from the people you meet at that event. If you don't have any follow-up to do because you knew everybody, so you can just do a quick email or whatever, and it doesn't take you the whole hour, hey, that's a win, right? You just got more time back on your calendar. But at least you have it on your calendar. So if you decide to go to 3 networking events on a Thursday morning, you need to schedule 3 hours somewhere on your calendar within the next 48 hours after those events to do your follow-up. If you don't have that capacity on your calendar, it's not worth your time to go.
Right. I mean, and there's so many people now who are really, I mean, there's a lot of ways to market and advertise your business now, maybe more than ever, right? That are on affordable platforms. You can be advertising on your social media. You can be using Google. You can be doing SEO. There's so many different ways to try to grow your business. But there is still an abundant amount of data that says that the majority of your business will come from personal recommendations and referrals. Yes. And that's because a referral has way more value to somebody than a Google analytic, you know, coming up at the top of the search. It just does, right? Yes. And there is some data that out there that says, you know, rating and reviews, things that actually do have some value to people because they see that as a personal recommendation. but it's nowhere near as if you're somebody I already know and trust, and I know that you're a good business person, and I call you and say, hey, Melissa, I really need a recommendation for X, Y, and Z. And you say, I know so-and-so, they're great. You know, I'm much more likely to hire that person just based on your personal recommendation.
Right. And the whole thing about the Google reviews and the star reviews, it depends on the industry. You know, you're not going to necessarily hire an attorney because they have a 5-star review, where you might go to a restaurant that has a 5-star review, right? So it depends on the industry that you're getting those reviews from and what you're looking for. But yes, if you get a personal recommendation, it is worth gold. It makes it it's no longer a cold referral at all. It all of a sudden, or cold prospect, it now becomes very, very warm, which is nice. And it's funny because you mentioned like social media and Google and all those things. And when you do ads on those, if you notice, it still has to turn into a personal relationship first. In other words, if they receive a lead magnet or they receive some kind of information, some kind of value from you because they clicked on something, they clicked on an ad or whatever, we send them through a whole series. And now that's the whole funnel thing, right? We send them through the whole series of ways, letting them get to know us before we actually ask for a sale. We're doing the same thing, right? Because people want to know, like, and trust. So whether they learn to know, like, and trust you through a referral or through networking with you or whatever, or they get the know, like, and trust factor from going through this funnel and this email campaign with you, that's still what they need. They need that connection. They need that personal connection. And so all of it boils down to personal connection. All of it boils down to know, like, and trust. All of it, all marketing boils down to that, really.
Yeah.
So that's important.
I agree. And I think you've offered some really good insight for business owners, entrepreneurs, side hustlers, really the whole gamut. I mean, honestly, even people who are just thinking about growing their circles, you know, even if you are, you know, working for somebody else, but you want to grow your potential, you know, business development skills or things of that nature. I mean, all of these are really, really good tips and takeaways, I think.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you sharing your time with us today and sharing your top 3. Thank you so much for being with us.
You are welcome. This has been very enjoyable. I've enjoyed it.
Thanks so much, Melissa. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top 3 with Strada Law. And thanks to our guest, Melissa Taylor, for joining us today. Melissa has developed a new networking platform with great content and ways to connect with others. So be sure to check it out on networkbuildgrow.com to learn more. Tune in to new episodes of Top 3 with Strada Law each month and catch all the other shows on the Sal-E-Boys Podcast Network. Subscribe to the Sal-E-Boys Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. To find out more about Strada Law, you can visit us at www.lestradalaw.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.